Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning. You're listening to GrokTALK.
Striving to bring you different music every week, no matter how tedious I claim it is. It's actually not that difficult. Last week I was listening to the show and we were talking about the music, and Skip's like, or Mike or somebody's like, you guys, great music, you always do this. I'm like, it's a little tedious. It can be, because you want to find something that you can put on that's got enough instrumental at the front end that you don't run into lyrics too soon.
Correct.
Right? And, I'm busy. And usually what happens is I'll just sit down in an hour and I'll find 5 or 6 or 8 things that I want to use. And then I'll just pull them in and take a look, and then I'll just throw them into the audio editor and listen and see what it sounds like. And then sometimes I'll just go, that'll do. Welcome back to GrokTALK, coming to you from the CNHG studios in beautiful Concord, New Hampshire. We had some snow the other day. We're going to get some more today. Dr. Cooper did text me. She is en route, so she won't be calling in. She'll be in studio around 10. We are here with Rick Olson. Mike is here fresh from Baltimore. And
Nashville.
And Nashville.
Where they play live blues in the food court at the airport.
Well, that doesn't stink.
Live blues at the food court in the airport.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's cool. And, of course, Skip Murphy, co-founder of GrokTALK.com. Please check us out at GrokTALK.com. A lot of the things that we talk about, we reference from blogs we've written or information we've posted, written by others. And we want you to visit them as well as us. And by all means, if you think that maybe this is a great value that you're getting, you can donate to us at GrokTALK.com and help pay for all these wires and cables and equipment and software and my new battery for my laptop that I'm going to have to replace because it's dead. And we're going to move forward with Rick. We've had... we already touched on HB 1589 and the excellent orchestration of its destruction, which was, of course, fabulous. There's another bill in the Senate, SB 244, that would basically turn people into criminals as well. And why don't we talk about that real quick, and then we'll move into some of the other stuff that's going around.
Well, honestly, I don't think anybody knows what that bill will do. It's rather confusing. Originally, it was proposed by Representative Goley and Senator David Waters. And there were 2 components to the bill. I think the overarching goal was to get people adjudicated mentally ill into the NICS check system so that, if you were crazy or whatever the term is, screw loose, okay? And
you're going to hear from the NAMBY
no, we like
people.
that. We like that.
I'm lonely, so I need to hear from somebody. So, anyways, if you need your bolts tightened up and a judge says so, okay, they can put you into the NICS system so you can't buy firearms. That was the overarching intent of the bill. The way the bill was written, that was not the case. Because what they had was the first, it was like a 4-page bill, 4 or 6-page bill. I can't remember now.
Which is way too long for a New Hampshire bill, as it is.
The first couple paragraphs talked about, who gets put into the NICS system. And then the next several pages talked about how you get out of the NICS system. And so basically you look at it, you read it, and if you have an understanding of how courts work and motions and civil procedure in New Hampshire, because
which you do,
yeah, you're talking thousands of dollars, lots of hours, opportunities for cops to file motions and do this and that.
It's a legal system fiscal enhancement bill.
Yeah, basically. And it's the end result is this disastrous process that could take you up to a year to 2 years to get your name out of the NICS system. Okay? What does it take to get your name in the NICS system? What if, say, your ex-wife was mad at you, if you have an ex-wife, okay?
I do.
And she called up and said, I don't like the way he's talking. I think he's going to hurt himself. He's crazy. Next thing you know, the police show up with the guys in the white suits. They put the jacket on you with the wraparound sleeves, shove you in the sheriff's van, and take you off to Concord. You're on South Fruit Street. Isn't that bizarre? New Hampshire State Hospital, where you go in if you've been adjudicated IEA, okay, his name's South Fruit Street.
And can you buy cake on South Fruit Street?
No, I don't know if you can. No, I don't think you buy anything. But anyway, so you're when you're at the state hospital for 3 days, okay, within that 3 days, you have to have a hearing with a judge. Now, if that judge says, "Oh no, I think there's been a mistake," you're not crazy. You can go home now, okay. Now, that adjudication in theory goes away. But if you're in the NICS system, you now have to, under this bill, you would have to go through that whole process of what they laid out. So the bill got amended. And Susan was nice enough to send me what the amendment was. And then I took and pasted it onto a Word document. I went, I can't read that. So at some point here, I need to get the amendment that Sharon Carson put together, Senator Sharon Carson, and look at it, because it's still pretty long. It's like 3 or 4 pages long, And I think the long and the short of Senate Bill 244 is we just got to kill it, because if they want to just simply have a provision to get people's names out of the NIC, I can live with that. Okay, there really should be, because there really is no guiding statutory authority to do that right now. I mean, certainly it can be done, but there's nothing that guides it, But this whole notion of where, okay, I was adjudicated, let's say I was adjudicated 9 years ago, I was up at the state hospital and, I got kicked loose and my life's going great, So now I want to buy a gun, so I want to get my name out of the NICS preclusion system. So now I file my petition. And one of the conditions of these bills is they want to know if you've been seeking any mental health treatment since that time. Well, what does that mean? That means if you electively have chosen to go to marriage counseling, that's now in. If you chose to go for counseling or see a hypnotist because you've quit smoking, that all falls under the purview of mental health.
Kevin Kervick, who is a professor at Southern New Hampshire University who's does this, he's a therapist.
Yep.
When this first came out, I emailed him and I said, what do you think about this bill? And he says he thinks it's crap.
Yeah.
He says because this puts therapists in a position where they have to decide basically whether or not somebody will be entitled to their Second Amendment rights, because they're under law, they're supposed to report. They already have to report because of Obamacare for all kinds of things.
Right.
But this would require them to contact the state and let them know that they saw this person. There's privacy issues. There's, the patient-doctor thing. It's just, he says, this is a nightmare.
Right.
Well, not only, and that's not the only industry, because I know that with daycare, if a child comes in with lots of bruises, daycares have to report that to DCYF here in New Hampshire, or the equivalent in a lot of other states. And slowly we're seeing, I believe, if you go in to see your regular doctor, you have to answer the Obamacare answers, which I will absolutely refuse to answer.
Right. Yeah.
Even though I'm told I have to. And it's like more and more private individuals are being sucked in to be government agents. And we're seeing that continual blurring of what is a private citizen, what is civil society, and what is government. In a lot of cases, there's lots of government and very little private citizen, and there's almost no civil society left anymore.
You also have to be careful, because as a person who might be, say, conservative, you have factors on the right or on the left who view that as a mental illness. So
correct.
It's already come out in print. It's come out from agencies. We've had reports that say people who used to be in the military or people who have Gadsden flags at their house might be a threat to national security.
What, you mean that giant one on the front of my garage?
Yeah, the one I saw last night when you weren't there.
Yeah, or the Navy Jack flying over my backyard.
There was a nice party at Valentine's Day gathering at Mike's house, and unfortunately he couldn't be there because he was stuck in transit.
Wow.
But those are the kinds of things where you're asking this institution. It's a left-leaning institution with lots of ties to the government. We've had Kevin, and he's talked about it. It's like global warming research. The government provides you money to produce results they like. So now you've got this entire industry, cottage industry of rent seekers, who are advantaged by the notion that they could say, oh, you have a mental illness, no guns for you.
Yep.
Well, we've seen that with...
And they'll no doubt at some point start to get incentives for reporting that. Mm-hmm. At the very least, there'll be disincentives for not asking all of those questions and actually getting answers. So I could see it getting to the point where the doctor's put in a position where he's penalized if you don't answer his questions. And that's how they're going to coerce it. And at some point, you're going to have to tell the doctor, well, get off the government dole and I'll see you privately.
Well, actually, Gene Shaheen, our senior senator, said, if you want that capability, pay more.
Yeah.
So that you don't get reported in. I mean, that's literally what she said.
Well,
So,
she's worth $14 million. She can do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Just like Ezekiel Emanuel, Dr. Death Panel, said when finally put under pressure, well, we didn't actually say you could keep your doctor. We said that that you could pay more if you wanted to keep your doctor.
yeah. I mean, that's...
So
you could-
even under communism,
You could pay more to have them tell you that you don't have any rights.
That's an interesting reference you made.
even under
Dr.
communism.
Death Panel, because he does have that Joseph Mengele look about him.
No. But he is. He
is the prime architect.
He is Buzz quality adjusted life year.
But it's quality adjusted.
No, but I mean, the long and the short of this bill is that
If you fall off the ends of his bell curve, it will toll for you.
His
Yeah.
hockey stick is.
Sorry, back
He
to
shoots, he
guns.
scores. Okay, so
the long and the short of it is I don't know what the amendment says. When it was all bunched together in a bunch of text, I just couldn't read it. Now, I don't know. They do a terrible job disseminating these amendments when they make them.
that's true.
And I'm starting to believe they do that on purpose. They don't want us to see the amendments. They want us to take their word for it that it's a good amendment.
It's interesting because in a lot of states you don't get as much access to the legislation as quickly as you. If somebody gives me a bill number, I can pull that sucker up, see the entire docket, see where the hearings are, go look at the notes, see who was on the committee. I can read the bill. There's a lot of things you can do. But amendments, you're absolutely right. You actually have to. I think you have to go through the record and find it in the text. And some of these House records and Senate records are like hundreds of pages of stuff, on a wide range of bills. And then sometimes there's a reference. And sometimes it leads to an amendment that you can actually read.
Right.
But not always, and you have to wonder.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously they want to hide stuff.
Sure.
They always want to do that. But
Yeah, let me play devil's advocate here for a second. I think that a lot of conservatives and most people in society, and liberals certainly go this way, liberals want to make sure that anybody who is absolutely possible at doing something wrong with a gun be disallowed from owning a firearm.
Sure.
I think most of society says, yeah, it's probably not a bad idea to do that. And the question is where is that balance point? And I will tell you that I'm involved in a nice email thread where people are wondering about that, because people are saying, well, what if I'm a felon that I have done my time? It's a couple decades down the line. I've kept my nose clean. Why shouldn't I have all of my rights? And here we go down back to the base point again. Mm-hmm. Of rights and freedoms. What are enumerated rights? What are natural rights? And does government have the responsibility or even the ability to take away some of those rights while allowing you, the word allow, for you to retain your other rights? Now, allow means, well, government's now in charge of those rights.
Right.
So the problem is when you look at Amendment or Article 2A here in New Hampshire, you look at the Second Amendment of the Bill of Rights at the U.S. level, it never says only those people we like can have this right. And what do we do about that? And it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks last night. What do we do in cases like that? Are we supposed to have a balance point, or do we say, no, everybody continues to have this right to self-defense with a firearm? And I think we're about to go to a break.
we are, and then Rick can respond. We'll be right back.
Steve McDonald here. You ever notice how Democrats like to create problems so they can then claim to solve them? Take Medicaid expansion, for example. Even if the federal government keeps its promise to New Hampshire to pay for most of it, it'll still cost New Hampshire taxpayers tens of millions of dollars more to provide inferior care and coverage to people who, for the most part, would never have needed it if Democrats hadn't reformed health care in the first place. That's right, that real expensive reform that doesn't care if it's only affordable if you act like you don't need insurance. Well, its number one claim to fame at this point is how many more people it forced onto Medicaid. And that's only because Obamacare kicks tens of millions of people off the plan they liked and were told they could keep but couldn't. So Medicaid expansion was always part of Obamacare for a reason. Democrats knew all along that the Affordable Care Act was unaffordable and they'd need to make Medicaid bigger and more expensive. So when people got their plan kicked to the health care curb, they could still sign up for something, even if it was something as crappy as Medicaid. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Grok, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
GrokTALK.
Okay, we're back. Well, okay, so to your point, if you remember what his point was.
No.
I will
Recap.
I will recap. Or répétez avec moi, as my French teacher used to say back in junior high school. When you look at the Second Amendment, Bill of Rights, you look at Article 2A here in the New Hampshire Constitution, it does not say only people we approve of get to keep this right.
Correct.
So in terms of guns and the ownership of firearms, we're talking about felons. We're talking about the people who've been adjudicated to be mentally insufficient to have this. Now, if you go back to the plain language of the constitutions, we're a little bit befuddled here. As I said, liberals are all about trying to get rid of anybody who can own a firearm. They want to get rid of them, period. They'll use any excuse. Most people in society say, felons, probably not a great idea to let them have a firearm because of recidivism rates. Mm-hmm. The other thing is those people who are mentally unstable that could go off in a snap and then snap off a few rounds. We don't want them to have that. But then you look at the plain language that never says, okay, everybody gets this right except for these set of people. What do we do? When you're confronted with the plain language, and you know something, the more libertarians on this email thread have some points that I really can't answer if I'm going to stay true to the plain wording of the constitutions versus where is there a balancing point? Should there be a balancing point to say, yes, you can have a firearm, but he cannot?
Well, and I think unless your felony was a violent crime, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to defend yourself when you get back out. And if it was a violent crime, even then, we need to figure out how that squares with the Constitution, because the Constitution doesn't say you can have rights sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, I've always said it's a corrupt argument. I mean, clearly it's a corrupt argument. There are people in our society you don't want to have guns because they will, in fact, hurt you. It's that simple. So why do the libertarians and the free staters always drill it down?
Well, I'm not so sure that I would say the free staters, but certainly those people who are full-blown libertarians who are only looking at the words of the plain words, and I consider them pretty plain words of the Constitution, are foundational documents. Mm-hmm. Do they have a point?
Actually, to that point, real quick, because I think this has something to do with what you're going to say. Based on our discussions with Carla and Ian last week, most of those people are people who, when you drill all the way down, don't even want those words because they think that those words have no value because none of the other words do. So, you talk about people, it's basically drilling down to anarchy where you say, well, these words don't really mean what they mean, therefore why do we have any words at all? And so some of those folks who are saying, it doesn't matter whether they were a felon or not, they should be able to have their right to defend themselves, are the same people who are saying none of these words really mean anything to us anyway, we're just kind of going along with it.
A bit like that philosopher in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy who argued black was white and then got run over on the next zebra crossing.
That's right, yeah. So, I mean, you're right, there are definitely people who are just too, their bolts can't be tightened enough,
No.
as you said earlier. And you don't want, because that leads to anarchy, which is mob rule. I mean, you're going to have people, if you can't stop them.
Here's a great analogy, okay? These anarchists that want no limits whatsoever, if I take a battering ram and an M16 and I smash down their door, what are they going to do? They're going to stop me. They're imposing a limit on me. Are they not?
But they believe that limits should be voluntary and cooperative, and it's all sunshine and lollipops. They're only a stone's throw away from liberals in some sense because
very much.
Because
we had this discussion last night at your house.
Yeah, because they believe that if it's all cooperation and capitalism, that what could go wrong? Well, my answer to that is Genghis Khan is what could go wrong.
Well, just human nature.
Wait a minute, are you giving me the long answer, dude?
It's real simple. It's human nature.
Yeah.
The utopian experiment fails for the same reason that the cooperation, it just doesn't work. People won't go for it.
The nice guys get rolled over by the not-so-nice guys.
There will always be people who are like, I could have more.
Well, when you have laws that are, I go back to what Justice Brandeis once said, law is the witness and external deposit of our moral society. So then if we have a society where we sanction, that's the way we're going to do it, felons and crazies are going to have guns, and the only limits you impose are those you impose, that's a pretty tough world to live in.
Yeah. Now, I have a problem with allowing a felon who has been convicted of a violent crime to allow them to have a firearm when they come out.
They shouldn't.
But I do know of people who have been convicted of a felony. A couple decades down the road, they've turned out to be fine, upstanding people. And they look at me and say, why do you have the right to defend you and yours and your property? And you've been good the last couple of decades. I've been good the last couple of decades. I've turned my life around. Why am I not afforded the same right to defend me, mine, and my property the way that you do?
When does this fit in with the SB 244 discussion about the next thing and getting people off it? I mean, that's really where we are, right?
No, because then we're talking about crazy people there.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, anybody can be put on that list. Technically, anybody can be put on the other one as well.
Here's the thing. With SB 244, a judge can put you in the state hospital and you don't even appear before that judge. All it takes is a cop and a social worker and a doctor to say, cart him off, and then you're gone. You're going to be there for at least 2 days or 3 days.
All of those people are on the government payroll, probably. So that's not a good sign.
But here's the other thing that I just don't seem to understand. The bill does list how you get off of the NICS system.
How much money you got?
Where does the state of New Hampshire get off in trying to tell the federal government what they're going to do with their own federal list?
Because there's no guarantee that if the state of New Hampshire says he's okay now, that the federal government gives a damn.
Yeah.
Once you got on that federal list, you probably ain't getting off.
And the problem is if you don't have a New Hampshire AG or a local sheriff who's willing to stand up to the federal government, you're screwed.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing about the bill. If you go with the assumption that, some people need to be put on the NICS system because they are a danger to society, let's give that as a given. But how does New Hampshire have the wherewithal to pass a law that tells the federal government, and now this is what you're going to do with your list? I just don't understand that unless it's just for pure political theater.
I don't think you can find any way to make this work. The reason the language of the Constitution is plain and simple is because that's how it needs to be. If you try and write complicated laws that say people can get their rights back if that, when the other, basically what you're saying is they can't get their rights back. So you give them their rights back, and if they do something stupid, you lock them away for longer, or maybe you execute them.
Now I hop onto the other side of the playing devil's advocate, and now that person goes out and kills a few more people. Who's at fault?
He is still, because guess what? You told him he couldn't get.
Well, indirectly you're correct.
And here's why. Here's why. Very, very simply. If he's a felon, if he's a real bad guy, he doesn't care that felons aren't allowed to have guns. He'll find a way to get one, and he'll hurt people.
Which is pretty much what happens now.
So do something real simple. Have a waiting period, a probation period. You come out of prison, you get a couple of years, and you get your rights back. And you know what? Because if you're a real bad guy, within that couple of years, you'll be back inside because you got that gun illegally or you used something else.
No, that would work. I think there is.
I'm done.
There really is an argument for people who were charged, like Ward Bird was charged with a felony for brandishing.
Sure.
Now, that's a law that made no sense. And at the time, we couldn't do anything about it. The judge read the law. The jury looked at the law. Nobody could annul the law or anything. They were stuck.
The jury could have.
They could have, but they didn't.
John Lynch could have let him out of jail.
John Lynch could have let him out of jail, but he didn't because he was a Democrat and
he doesn't like guns.
He doesn't like guns. So, I mean, there were a lot of things that could have gone right, but in that particular example, there's a guy who was charged with a felony improperly, really, but that's the way the law was.
He showed the gun in his holster. That's brandishing.
Yeah, right. So anyway, and he still hasn't been pardoned.
No, he hasn't been pardoned.
He was let out of jail.
Right.
The sentence was commuted, but the crime was not expunged from his record.
Exactly.
Right, so he's still
is
a
a
felon.
felon.
He cannot technically own a firearm.
Right.
For no reason other than that there was a nut job on his property, he wouldn't leave, and he put his hand on his pistol.
And that's an accurate description. That woman is a nut job.
Right.
And was found to be so, and was charged with crimes including cruelty to animals and others in multiple states.
We're waving at
Hey.
Roger.
Roger Wilkins.
He doesn't want to be on camera.
Come on in.
Come on in.
Wave to the camera.
We've got cameras going. We're live streaming. This is our friend Roger Wilkins.
Yeah, Ed Dale and Roger Wilkins just did a walk-on.
Yep.
Yeah, good. Nice silent sneaking.
No, but going back to the point.
Wait. There's a hall that goes around, so let's just point that out.
Yeah.
They didn't have to come
But
through.
let's also give. I'm going to follow them. So hold on, folks, because
there's something really important, and that really important is it's their property.
It is.
Here's the reason why
they allow us to use this most excellent studio, even with its decaying old office equipment around the edges.
There's an organization here that is using some of this office space
Yes.
as well, and
It's
it's paying
called-
rent, unlike us.
It's called Concerned Veterans for America, a brand new group that has been formed and that Roger Wilkins is helping with. So, and we're going to have you on, Roger, because you're next door. But yeah, we're giving you a free plug right now because we're live streaming, and we need you to talk to Steve to get you on the show as soon as possible. All right, and maybe by that time you'll actually have something in your office.
Is he involved in the Navy SEALs coming through next week?
Yes, he is. By the way, you've got people coming in, right?
Yeah, we have a meeting. Yeah.
Okay, but with some other important people coming in. Before you leave, stop in. All right.
Well, hey,
so what we're
what
saying
were we
here
talking
is
about?
it all
Squirrels.
Squirrels just came through the nest,
Yep.
and we all lost it. What
We're
we're
talking about
saying?
crazy people and guns and felons. That's what we're talking
we're not
about.
felons,
Not-
but we're crazy, and there are probably some guns around.
We are the ADD bunch here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily crazy. So this is the center of a lot of good activity here in Concord. It's a conservative location, and let's once again give a plug for the Coalition of New Hampshire
Did you
Taxpayers.
just say? Wait a minute. Did you just say Concord was a conservative location?
This location.
No, I said
Right.
this location.
This one.
This is a conservative location in Concord. A
I
lonely.
said that's a whole show. Right?
Yeah. A lonely outpost. And,
It's a foxhole, a bivouac, a refuge.
and we are
Boston.
we are giving a plug for cnht.org.
All right, and thank you, CNHT. We'll be right back with Dr. Julianne Cooper. My name's Steve. I'm here with Rick Olson, Mike Rogers, and Richard Olson. I said, Skip Murphy. We're all here. We'll be back. Bye.
Grok TV.